Hey guys, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and we are 6 days away from the NFL Draft and the Sports Zone Chicago Draft Party sponsored by Miller Lite. Come hang out with your favorite Sports Zone Chicago personalities. Hey folks, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and we are 3 days away from the NFL Draft and the Sports Zone Chicago Draft Party sponsored by Miller Lite. Come hang out with your favorite Sports Zone Chicago personalities on Thursday, April 27th at Output Lounge, 1758 West Grand Avenue in Chicago at 6 o'clock. Enjoy our live draft show, the best wings in the city, cold drinks, and giveaways throughout the event. So don't meet us there, beat us there. And we'll see you Thursday, April 27th, 6 p.m. at Output Lounge, 1758 West Grand Avenue in Chicago.
Hello, and happy Monday, the last Monday of April. Welcome to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, as you guys can see, no Sidney Brown, at least not yet. Apparently the power just went out over at his neck of the woods. Like, I know the weather's been kind of iffy with the rain and the frost. I think there was a freeze warning that just happened here in our region. I guess there's supposed to be a freeze warning again tonight, so I guess the power went out over at his place, so hopefully he'll be joining us soon. As he said, it just happened about 20 minutes ago, so hopefully he'll be on with us soon. But even so, welcome to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter, as you can see right there, and at Keenan's going to be on the IG. You can follow the Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It's all right there for you. You can also download the Sports Zone Chicago app. Because we said so, that's why. And just, it's right there for you. Also too at War Media Podcast when this is posted up later today. And all that good stuff. Of course, you can also follow War Media, wherever you get your podcasts, right there for you. Just type in War Media Podcast, whether it's Google or Apple, whatever whatever site you use, for your podcast and whatnot. So it's all right there for you. And of course, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere you want on Roku TV. It's all right there. Celebrate with the squad, and Sports Zone Chicago is now Roku television. Right there. I'll put it up on the screen here on the Roku remote. Just right there. Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere you want. And I'm not even going to try to do the 20 thing that Sid does. So we're going to get right to it here on Second City Sports. And of course, we'll talk a little bit of baseball. Not a good showing for our Chicago sports teams. I mean, I guess Sid's not here. I guess I'll start with the Cubs first. After Drew Smyly flirted with a perfect game, with a perfect game against the Dodgers. Of course, we saw what happened with Yan Gomes and such. I guess the whole thing in the seventh inning. I guess he wanted a piggyback ride. I guess. So, it's sort of, I don't know what happened there, but, it was pretty funny about it. I guess, Smiley was very understanding, and also too, Gomes if you guys saw, he had a helmet on. So, but a nice win by the Cubs, shut the Dodgers out. But unfortunately, there was nothing else after that too. The Dodgers would end up taking 2 out of 3 from the Cubs in their weekend series. Kind of not a good showing too. I mean, Jason Outman, who's been, probably one of the best rookies in all, not just in Dodgers history, but all of baseball. He continues to break records and such. So, it's all kind of, sort of manifest there. He's starting to heat up. Other guys started to heat up a little bit too over the weekend. Not a good showing by, it was kind of like a back and forth between Marcus Stroman and of course Clayton Kershaw yesterday, but the Dodgers got the end of that. But just a very intense series by them, nonetheless, and again losing 3 out of 4, not a good showing by the Cubs, but it is what it is. I mean, they fall to 12-9 and whatnot, and just a very tough show. They have a very tough series against the Padres coming up tomorrow. So, make sure you guys check that out. That should be a fun series too, nonetheless. But going back to that Sunday series, they lose 7-3. Mookie Betts, hit a home run. He started to kind of get his groove back after coming back from paternity leave. So, everything else is sort of kind of, there too. The Dodgers players are starting to kind of heat up as well. Mac Muncy also had a couple of RBIs. So did JD Martinez as well. So, like I said, they're starting to find their groove. We're talking about the Dodgers. As for the Cubs, I mean, you saw sort of like these last few months. I mean, 3 out of 4. It's a tough showing by the Cubs, but it is what it is with that. But I kind of feel like it's look. I think the Cubs, where they are, especially the way the season has already set up for them, I think they're feeling pretty good. If you're 12-9, you're a Cubs fan right now, so. If you're a Cubs fan, so it's it was tough. Bellinger hit a couple home runs. Seiya Suzuki is starting to find his groove again now that he's back. But again, it was really the kind of pitching, of course, just too much firepower on the Dodgers. And so, just a very interesting little tidbit there. So I guess feel free to comment on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube page. So it's all kind of manifesting, kind of right there for you, right there with you. But you know, like I said, I think this that the Cubs, I think they got a pretty tough schedule coming up. Like I said, they can play the Padres starting tomorrow. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that maybe they can get if they can get 2 out of 3 versus the Padres. I think they can kind of get back on track. And one they've actually had a pretty solid show, and they got to go at Miami and at the Nationals for 4 next week. So we'll be interested to see if they can kind of get some runs going. I know the Marlins have been actually looking pretty good too. The Nationals have been a little bit surprising too. So this is still sort of a way for the Cubs to kind of get in going and get into the groove and everything else. So like I said, feel free to comment on our Sports Hall Chicago's uh Twitter, and also our YouTube page, and also on the Facebook page. So it's kind of all right there for you. Now let's see here. I guess that's about it for the Cubs. I mean, let's talk some White Sox. Unfortunately, the White Sox got swept by the Rays. What else can you say about the White Sox at this point at this juncture? Just a you know, they actually had their chances to kind of win one of those games. We said that over the weekend that they were going to they should be able to win at least one of these games. That didn't happen, unfortunately. I just I don't know what you can say about this the Sox at this point. I mean, they lost 2 of those in walk off fashion. The Rays are still undefeated at home. They're the only undefeated team at home left in the majors. So I think they showed you why. I mean, their firepower can kind of wear you out. Also the pitching just wasn't very good. I mean, Friday's game was just terrible. I mean, it just wasn't there. I mean, Christian Bethancourt and Brandon Lowe. I mean, look, these guys aren't household names, but they're one of the reasons why the Rays are where they are right now, having the best record in the league. Now, as far as the Sox are concerned, I mean, you feel like the Sox are kind of like, I don't know what you can say about the Sox at this point. I mean, it seems like we've been playing this song for the last like 3 years, and it's just unfortunate. I mean, losing a tough one last night. I mean, that's 13th home win by the Rays. Just couldn't get it going on offense. I'm talking about the Sox, and just a not a really good showing by that. Lucas Giolito actually had a pretty decent start. He had 5 strikeouts. He did have 4 earned runs, and that it just wasn't there for them this week in this series. And it gets even tougher for the Sox as they'll be facing the Blue Jays starting tonight. So in Toronto, so that's going to be a pretty we'll see where the Sox are, but I'm not. They're not looking good in that sense at this point. But it'll be interesting to see if the Sox can kind of like at least try to win one of these games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. As you listen to Second City Sports, Sports on Chicago, Lakeena McGee. Hopefully, Cindy Brown will join us in a little bit. But like I said, the power went out in his apartment. But going back into this, I mean, talking some baseball here, and you can't, like I said, you can't really blame injuries for the Sox and what they've been doing and whatnot. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're just like, it's definitely, I don't know what else you can say at this point. I mean, it's just like just that particular timing and whatnot. So it was just like I don't know what else you can say, but I know that Vaughn had some pretty big hits. He was one of the reasons why they were still in that game, both those games on Friday and Saturday. Uh, you know, Andros, was okay. Eloy, he is starting to kind of find his groove, but you hope that maybe that he can kind of be back to the Eloy that that we've been seeing, that we've been hoping to see. So I think for me, I think for all the Sox fans out there, again, you guys feel free to comment here on either on our Sports on Chicago's Facebook and YouTube page. It's just one of those things where you're just like, I don't know what else you can say at this point. It's just totally massive of what's been going on here. Now let's talk about the rest of what's going on in baseball. And this weekend's been pretty interesting, to say the least. But let me see if I can get you guys down here. Here, I mean, look, Clayton Kershaw had another solid outing yesterday. Um, hitless, the scoreless innings, 5 and 2/3. Did fill up a lot of pitches though, but again, that's you'll take that if you'll be okay with that if you're a Yankees fan. Now, what really has impressed me so far in this young season, and I kind of feel like, is the Pirates. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates have been, I think, better than I think a lot of people thought. They're actually, as of we're recording they're actually leading the National League Central right now. They're 16-7, and again, these are like this was supposed to have been like a rebuilding year, I guess. They beat the Reds. I know they swept the Reds. They swept the Rockies, and I know they did split their series with the Cardinals, so we'll see if they really are for real. I mean, it's hard to say that if the Pirates are for real, like as I consider that who they played. Again, I can't really hope who they play, so it is what it is. But Vincent Velasquez, he struck out 10 at to cap off that sweep with the Reds. So, but also kind of like the biggest story is, if you guys haven't seen this story, Drew Maggi, who's 33 years old, he's been in the minors for 13 years, since I think like 2010. He actually got the call up. If you guys haven't seen the video yet, you guys should check it out. You love seeing those his reaction that you're going to the big top, and you like seeing these kind of stories where you're seeing all these journeyman guys. I mean, yeah, you see guys like Julio Rodriguez who come in after their first or second year, and they come in and make impacts right away. But you see more, but there are actually even more guys like Mr. Drew Maggie, I should say, who has to, scrimp and, claw their way into, having to get back to the major. You have to, sometimes you got to wait 10, 12, in his case, 13 years. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check out the video, yeah, actually, when you find out you got the call up, that's a really cool. That was probably the best moment of the weekend in baseball and everything else. But yeah, I mean, of course, the Rays, they're 19-3, like I said, best record in the majors. Baltimore, I mean, Baltimore, they've won 6 in a row. I think, again, they were kind of right there in the playoffs last year. I mean, yeah, granted, they haven't had the hardest schedule. I guess they played the Tigers, they played the Nationals, but you knew what you're supposed to do. Playing the sweeping that, but they actually have this interesting celebration. It's definitely kind of like a really sort of odd sort of thing there. But yeah, I mean, Baltimore's been playing pretty well. Minnesota's looked really good. They're, like I said, they're leading the Central right now. I know they lost a tough series. They lose 2 out of 3 against the Nationals. I mean, if you're the Twins, it's sort of like your chance to try to separate yourselves from the Guardians and the White Sox, but you weren't able to do that. So that was a tough series for the Twins. Who's another? The Rangers have still been playing pretty well too. The Astros, I mean, they're starting to kind of get their groove and feeling like the defending World Series champions. The Braves, I know they've lost 4 in a row, so it's been tough. I know the Mets have as well, so that's kind of been a seesaw back and forth there. The Marlins have looked okay, although they actually have kind of fallen back to earth a little bit. I talked about the Pirates. The Brewers had an up and down weekend. The Diamondbacks, they're starting to kind of fall back to earth a little bit. With the Dodgers winning 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. I think that sort of it kind of helps them kind of find their groove a little bit. So again, I think you're starting to sort of see, like I said, we're about 3 weeks, just a little over 3 weeks into the season, and it's gonna be interesting to see how this sort of all this kind of shakes out and such. Now going into the schedule for today, going into this week, yeah, Colorado and the Guardians. You can stream that on ESPN Plus. Boston and Baltimore. Houston and Tampa Bay, they start their series. Texas and Cincinnati probably. Texas has been really solid. What we talked about, the White Sox and the Blue Jays, they start their series tonight. The Marlins and Atlanta, that should be a fun division series. Detroit and Milwaukee. The Yankees and Minnesota, that should be an interesting series. Oakland and of course we all know what happened at Yankee Stadium earlier this month. We'll see, they can kind of get back going there. Oakland and Los Angeles. Of course, Shohei Ohtani's still looking really good, both pitching and hitting wise. KC and Arizona. And St. Louis and San Francisco. Let's see some of the series that are happening here. Let's see. Oh, Dodgers and Pirates. That's something. It's a pretty interesting series. These two with the Pirates and their big start. So that should be an interesting series there. We talk about Washington and the Mets. That should be. Your Mets shouldn't have too trouble. We talk about the Cubs and hosting the Padres for a 3-gamer. Kansas City and Arizona, and that's it. So I think that's all the rest of the series for this week in baseball. So we're gonna take a really quick break. Hopefully Sid will be back with us in a little bit. But we're gonna talk some NBA playoffs. Some pretty interesting things happening over the weekend in the NBA playoffs. I mean, we'll talk more about that and a whole lot more. Lakeena McGee, hopefully Cindy Brown will be joining us soon. The Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
welcome back to Second Seed Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakeena McGee again. Hopefully, Cindy Brown will be powered up if you will, and join us again. Join us here very soon. You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena McGee on the IG. Of course, if you got anything to say, as we're going to be talking some NBA playoffs over the weekend, some pretty interesting things happening in the playoffs so far, especially last night. We'll get to that in a little bit. You feel free to comment on the Sports on Chicago's Facebook page, now Sports on Chicago on YouTube, and I'll get your comments up as soon as I see them. Also, too, if you decide to troll or do something stupid, sorry, folks, I'm going to give you guys I guess if you want to do current players, I guess the Draymond Green boot, I guess, bye-bye. So, we'll see. You'll see if that kind of, manifests itself. But yeah, it is what it is with that. But going into what happened this past weekend here at the NBA playoffs, and I'm going back to we'll start what happened on yesterday, and of course, pretty interesting things happened. We'll talk about the Suns and the Knicks. I mean, no, not the Suns and the Knicks. My bad. The Cavs and the Knicks. We'll start there first. Jalen Brunson had a playoff high 29 as the Knicks take a 3-1 lead over the Cavs, and I'm already seeing, folks say that, hey, look, hey, the Knicks might be going to the Eastern Conference Finals. We've been hearing it for like the last month, and I find that a little bit annoying. So if you guys have been listening to me or follow me on Twitter, I kind of find it's a little bit annoying. But look, I mean, I know people want to have, I know there are those contingent Bulls fans that are saying that, hey, maybe Tiff should not have been getting rid of, but that's a whole different conversation. We'll have that conversation another time. But like I said, Brunson had 29. RJ Barrett had 26. Julius Randle, not much of a factor, but he was actually best because he was struggling. He was only 3 for 10 from the field and 0 for. But Josh Hart, who of course they picked up via trade. There's some nice contributions also to Obi Toppin. So yeah, it was definitely one of those games where a lot of the role guys had a lot to do with that. But I got my own drugs about this series. It kind of feels like, yes, the Knicks, they looked really good and such. This will be, on Wednesday. They don't play again until Wednesday. They will, the Knicks will be playing for a chance to clinch a series. This will be their first time they would clinch a series should they do it since 2013. Over the last 20 seasons, the Knicks are just one of 3 franchises with one or few playoff series wins. And they of course, they joined the Hornets, who they're not going to be going to the playoffs anytime soon, safe to say, and of course the Kings. We'll get to them in a second, but look, good defensive stops, and because big rebounds by the Knicks, and 47 rebounds. They out rebounded the Cavs 47-33, and that's not going to do it for you, especially if you're trying to advance in the playoffs. So that whole thing is really kind of the reasons why the Knicks are the Knicks are where they are, and the Cavs are on the ropes now. Back to the Cavs here. Look, Spider Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell. You're only 5 for 18, I should say, from the field. You were 0 for the 3-point line. You only had 11 points. I mean, that's not. You're trying to prove that that you can be on a playoff caliber team. You're not showing that. Darius Garland, of course, he did his thing. 23 points. He led the way, but he could be doing more. Evan Mobley, 12 points. You didn't try to attempt a 3. I mean, where are you at, dude? Jared Allen, 14 points. You've disappeared too. And Karis LeVert, who got into the starting lineup, only 14 points, only 4 for 10. So like, this isn't where the big guys for the Cavs. I mean, that this isn't, yeah, you could say that the Knicks, their guys are stepping up to like Brunson, but yeah, where are the guys? I think the Donovan Mitchell, I think, picked the worst time to have his worst game of the season, and this isn't, this is not really something that you want to hear if you're a Cavs fan. So this isn't a good look. Now they don't play again on Wednesday, so they get a little bit of a rest. They get to come back home and such. So hopefully they can hold serve at home and try to see if they can try to get the Knicks a clinch over at MSG. That series is up 3-1 now. Yesterday, another game that happened yesterday. Boston beat Atlanta 129-121 after losing game 3 in Atlanta. They get still a home win in Atlanta. So for me, I think this is sort of like, this is what you need if you're Boston. If you were going to sweep, you could at least clinch. At least get yourself in your court to kind of make sure to to try to clinch it. Jason Tatum had 31 points, and also Jalen Brown also had 31. So the sort of little tandem there with the 31 points and such. So that was a nice showing by the two of them. I think there's like the third or fourth time that someone has had a different scored at least 30 points. So so it's interesting that they did that. So they were able to kind of take control of the game and were able to kind of like get control of it, sort of like clinch the series. Well, it was like clinch the series at TDF Garden over in Boston. They play again on Wednesday as well. As for Atlanta, I mean, John Collins only 5 points, dude. Where are you? I know Trey Young, 35 points. He did what he could, but and Deontay Murray also had 23. Um, De'Aaron Hunt, DeAndre, I should say, had 30 points. So he did his thing, but 27 points, I should say. I'm talking about Hunter, but John Collins, where are you, dude? I mean, you could have helped out, in that front to sort of like try to maybe get them back in the game. This is sort of like they got close a couple of times talking about Atlanta, but they just couldn't. They didn't do it, couldn't get enough and do enough to win that game. So now they're on the road. I'm talking about the Hawks. So if you're the Celtics, you want to try. We'll get to the series, the rest of the series this weekend in a minute, but we'll see what happens there. Probably one of the let's get this game first. Shout out to our buddy Spiro Diaz, friend of the show, who has done done a great job, in this series. The T-Wolves looked really good yesterday. After nearly blowing the game, they were the Nuggets actually put on a 12-0 run, I should say, to get tie the game. They were actually should have won this game, in regulation, but they outscore the Nuggets. I'm talking about the T-Wolves 18-12. Anthony Edwards led the way there with 34 points, which is a season, which is not a season high, but it's up there. He was 13 for 27 from 12 for 27, I should say, from the field. 5 to 12 from three. Rudy Gobert stepped a little bit too, made some big shots. I know Towns was kind of in and out the lineup. I think he fouled out in regulation, so that's why he only had 17. But look, Anthony Edwards is sort of like Lillard took the team on his back, and especially after losing that lead in regulation, Nuggets were able to tie it, but they were able to. Edwards was able to kind of get it going there too. So really, really nice showing there too. I know some people said maybe Anthony Edwards should be going somewhere else, but that's a whole whole different conversation. So we'll see what happens with that. So now that cuts into their lead. I don't think Denver has too much to worry about. I think go home, clinch it. We'll get to the scheduling in a second. Now this is probably one of the games of the weekend. They had the Warriors beating the Kings, tying that series at 2 apiece, 126, 125, edging them out. This was an interesting game. If you saw this game on ABC, it was back and forth. The Kings cut it, down to 2. Steph Curry calls a timeout. The only problem was that they didn't have any left. So I always find it weird whenever that happens, because I mean, no one learned from the quiz forever. We still see it happen sometimes in various, various times, both in college and pro. But there's a scoreboard right there. I mean, there's no assistant coach. If the head coach was going to tell you that the assistant coach should have, there's always an assistant coach there to kind of like keep track of that. So I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't, that they weren't able to do that. No one told Steph that he didn't have, they didn't have any timeouts left. But luckily, they didn't have to do that. So Fox actually gave the ball to Harrison Barnes actually got a chance and to probably would have won it, probably would have put the Kings up 3-1. I know some people were kind of questioning that, but let's remember too. I know people want to go back to when Barnes was with the Warriors. Of course, you guys remember what happened in 2016 when LeBron and the Cavs came back from 3-1 down. He was one of the reasons why, and he kind of a little sore because I guess because he was wide open. Maybe that's why. And I guess if you're De'Aaron Fox, you kind of felt a little insulted, like hello, like why no one pick me? But it is what it is there. But again, look, you got the experience. Steph had 32, Clay had 26, Jordan Poole had 22, Draymond had 12 off the bench. So it's interesting because of course we said this, the experience could play a factor here. Of course, this is Curry, Green, and Towns is their 94th playoff win together. this is actually pretty cool stat. That's the third most by a trio in NBA postseason history. They only trail the trios of the Spurs tandem trio of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili. Now all three Hall of Famers. And also you got Kareem, Magic, and Michael Cooper at 110, 126 for the Spurs guys, 110 for Magic and Kareem and Coop. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting stat there. But yeah, they go back to Sacramento, and this is going to be the problem for the Warriors because we've seen the Warriors have had numerous road issues throughout the season. So now they got to go back to Sacramento. I'm hoping that they realize that they're going to have to win one of these games at home, unless they win this game tomorrow, and hopefully they can clinch it at home. So we'll see what happens there. So now that series is now tied at 2 piece. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakeena McGee. Hopefully, Cindy Brown will be joining us during the 1 o'clock hour. Going into Saturday's games. Let's see, which one will I start with? I'll start with the clincher here. Of course, as expected, Philly swept. I should say, Brooklyn 96-90, 80. 96-88, I should say. And Noah Embiid, of course, that knee injury, he suffered a little knee injury, during that game, crazy game 3, but they didn't really need him, thankfully. If you're the Sixers, you'll give him the extra rest. Tyrese Maxey had 16, Harden had 17. It was actually Tobias Harris who had 25. That's his best showing in the playoffs too, like I said. So a pretty nice effort by some of the secondary guys for the Sixers. So if you're Doc Rivers, you'll take the rest. You'll let Embiid rest his knee and any other injuries that I know Harden's been a little bit banged up too. So that was actually a pretty solid show. They know what you're supposed to do. Trying to kind of pick up the slack. So that was a really nice moment. So they get to rest a little bit. They get to chill. So they're the first team to clinch a spot in the second round of the semifinals, the conference semis. Let's see here. Phoenix. Well, actually, going back to that Sixers win for a second. That's the first time they've done that since they did it against the Bucks in 1985. So also, second chance points were a big factor there. They had 58 more second chance points than the Nets this series. So even despite no Embiid, they were able to kind of pick up the slack in the second chance points department. So that really helped them a lot. Now, Phoenix and the Clippers. Again, no Kawhi for the Clippers. I think that's a big part. That knee is still is actually the other knee, not the knee that he had surgery on a couple of years ago, I should say. It's actually his other knee that's been bothering him now. Nonetheless, the Suns were able to take advantage of that and beat the Clippers, hold them off 112-100. 31 points from Mr. KD. And also, Devin Booker had 30 points as well. So they're starting to kind of find their groove a little bit. They're the third duo to score at least 25 plus points. These are the first 4 games of a postseason. They joined Kobe and Shaq, who did in 03, and Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. They did it all the way back to 1962. So, they joined a pretty impressive list there. DeAndre Ayton, who I've said that should step up a little bit in the playoffs, he did with 15 points. CP3 had 19. I'm sorry. Ayton had 15 points and 13 boards. CP3 not his best showing on the assist, but he did make some big shots that kind of helped put the game away for the Suns. So that was a really good showing by him. Now, Russell Westbrook, you got to wonder, he's not the problem. He had 37 points leading the way for the Clippers. Just, no Kawhi. Of course, PG's still out. That's a big order for the Clippers. So we'll see. Maybe they can get it going. But if you're the Suns, you got to be feeling pretty good about this series. You want to try to clinch it tomorrow. So, again, we'll get to the scheduling in just a second. Let me go back here and see here. All right. Eastern Conference, of course, the first round, I should say. The Heat beat the Bucks. Blew them out pretty badly, 121-99. Again, no Giannis. That back is still bothering him. I'll tell you guys about his status in just a little bit for tonight. Yeah, Jimmy Butler had 30. And Duncan Robinson was a guy there, 20 off the bench. Big showing by the bench guys. Of course, Robinson had 20 points. Caleb Martin had 12. Also had 12 off the bench. So some big contributions from guys on the bench, very exposed for us. So taking advantage of that, they're up 2-1, and also 2 3-points. 3-pointers were the big factor here as well for them. And of course, Robinson, he was shooting threes. He was 5 for 6 from 3. So that definitely helped. They were hard to beat if you're there in their threes, with the Heat. So we'll see. I'm a little concerned. Of course, Giannis is going to play tonight. Just want to make that clear. If you guys didn't see the news earlier this morning, I'm wondering how effective Giannis is going to be. That's going to be the really big question for me. I'm hoping that he can get it together. Hopefully, he can see the open Giannis. Even if not, I mean, I know Drew Holiday had 19 points, Chris Middleton had 23, but they really need to get contributions from their bench guys. I mean, that's really especially if we know Giannis is not going to be at 100%. That's going to be a problem. So this could be a big upset. I said this could be. We'll see. I mean, they play tonight, so we'll see what happens. Like I said, we'll get to the scheduling for the playoffs in a second. So let's see here. And one last series before we go into this week's games. Of course, the big one here, Memphis and the Lakers. The Lakers beat Memphis 111-101. They take a 2-1 lead in their series. Of course, all the crazies that happened after that. Dylan Brooks had a flick or two. Of course, he won't be suspended. I'm sure a lot of Lakers fans aren't happy about that. John Moran looks like he's starting to feel better. He had 45 points, which is a playoff high for him. 5 for 10 from 3-point range. Also, too, of course, LeBron had 25. AD had 31. D'Angelo Russell had 17 for the Lakers. Austin Reeves had 13. Roy Nakamura had 16. So, again, nice, well-balanced scoring by the Lakers. So that's a really, that was a really nice assessment of that game. So, I think if you're the Grizzlies, you're starting to become the team that everybody does not like. I mean, they do a lot of yapping, and they haven't accomplished nothing yet. I mean, all this yapping that they're all doing. I mean, I know Jaren Jackson Jr. and of course, Dylan Brooks and his history of talking. It's very off-putting for some people. I think they're become that team that no one likes, and I think that's not a good thing. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of put their money where their mouth is, and perhaps maybe they can tie their series tonight. So speaking of this series that's coming up tonight, of course, only 2 games. You got the Bucks and the Heat. They're still back at in Miami on TNT. That's at 6:30. So like I said, Giannis will be playing. So we'll just see how, like I said, just see how effective he'll be. Memphis and the Lakers. That's at 9. So also on TNT. Of course, that's a doubleheader here on TNT. It'll be just to see if we can get that great series. Hopefully, maybe could the Grizzlies get even the series up as they go back to Memphis, or if you're the Lakers, you want to try to get control of it. That way, you're going to have to go to Memphis having a 3-1 lead. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there tonight. Now, Atlanta and Boston, that's at 6:30 tomorrow on TNT. It'll be interesting to see if you're Boston, you want to try really hard to kind of clinch the series and get you some rest, as you're gonna be waiting to see who you're gonna play in the Knicks and Cavs series. Minnesota and Denver. If you're Denver, you don't want to give Minnesota any opportunities or any type of hope that they have a shot. So, our buddy Terrell Diaz will have the call there for NBA TV with Grant Hill. That's at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So if you're Denver, you want to try and clinch that series. Lickety split. Clippers and Suns, again, same thing here. The Suns, you don't want to give the Clippers any hope. We'll see if Kawhi plays tomorrow. I haven't heard anything. I know he hasn't been practicing the last couple of days, so we'll be interested to see if he does play. How effective will he be? Let's get a couple of comments here. We'll get to that. I'll get to your comments in a second, I see your comments. I'll put them up in just a second. That's Tuesday's matches for tomorrow. 3 games there. And we've got 4 here. Of course, the Knicks and the Cavs will be interested to see. That's at 6 o'clock on NBA TV. We'll see where they at. I mean, of course, as you said, this is the Knicks' shot to clinch the series there. So we'll see if they can do that. Lakers and Grizzlies, we'll see where they are. Will this be a clinching game for the Lakers, or will this be a pivotal game 5? We'll wait and see there. Miami and Milwaukee, again, same thing. Will this be a 2-2 series, or will it be the Heat trying to pull off the upset? And our buddy Lamont Scott, of course, we're talking about tonight's game, game 4, I should say. That's tonight. Portis, yeah, he does, because he did not have a good game on Saturday. So that's really gonna be the key. If Portis and Middleton, all the other guys can step up, especially if Giannis isn't at 100%. that's going to be the key, especially with that back injury. So that we've all know that those back injuries can linger. We'll see with Wednesday's schedule. We got the Heat and the Bucks. Also at 6:30, also on NBA TV. Again, same thing. If this is a pivotal game 4, will survive, or will this be Miami trying to clinch a series? Also, Golden State. I think Golden State. I think they got to realize that they got to win one of these games in Sacramento. Now they got to win this one in order to try to clinch it. So we'll see if this is the pivotal game 5. So we'll see what happens with this. Gonna be interested to see which teams show up. Will Sabonis and Fox and Monk and all of these guys on Golden State, you got the experience, but you've had a lot of road issues this year. So gonna be interested to see if they can do that. So we'll see what happens there. Thursday's matchups. Some of these are gonna be if necessary. So again, Denver, Minnesota. I'm assuming Denver will probably clinch in Minnesota. Denver will clinch in Denver tonight, assuming that they win. Phoenix, same thing, with the Clippers. I'm sure they're going to want to clinch. Same thing with Boston, too. So these 3 games probably won't. You may see maybe one, if that. So I don't think you're going to be seeing any games on Thursday. So, we'll see. But yeah. Hey, listen, I can see Sports on Chicago. Lakeena McGee with you as we're wrapping things up for the NBA talk now. What has been your sort of like your big surprise with the NBA so far? I know there's been a lot of injuries, guys, going in and out of lineup, all the weird, suspensions and such. So, like I said, for me, if Giannis can be effective tonight, I think that's really going to be the key. If you don't have an effective Giannis, they show they can play well without him. I'm talking about the Bucks, but the problem is that they haven't been consistent with that. So that's going to be the key with that. But also too, the same thing with same thing with a Kawhi. It doesn't look like Kawhi's going to be able to play. So again, if you're the Suns, you want to try to take advantage of that too. So that's going to be the key here for me in this sense. But yeah, I think it should be a fun week. So like I said, we may see a lot of clinching. Like I said, Philly's sitting pretty, they're chilling, and Embiid's resting that knee. So we'll see what happens with that. So it's gonna be interesting to see if they can kind of get things going here. So if you're the Nuggets, if you're the Suns, if you're the Lakers, you want to try it. Well, I'll say the Suns. We'll also keep saying with the Suns and the Celtics and those teams. You want to try and win your series tonight and tomorrow. In the case of the Suns, and just try to kind of get out of there with a win. If same thing with the Lakers, you want to try to take control of your series. Boston, tomorrow, you want to be able to try to clinch it. Tomorrow. Denver, same thing. You're gonna want to have to try and clinch it. So. Like I said, the Sixers are chilling. They're sitting pretty. They're just waiting to see who they're going to play with the Cavs. Remember the Cavs and Knicks don't play again until Wednesday. I know the schedule's a little bit wonky, but look, they're going to have a little bit of a rest. So, like I said, Embiid can rest that knee, and I'm sure all the other guys are banged up too. So yeah, they can kind of chill for a little bit and see who they're going to play against. And if you're hoping that it extends another day so you get more rest. So we'll just see what happens with that. Also, like I said, same thing with Miami and Milwaukee. Now, I think that game tonight is going to be pivotal, because if Miami can pull this off, and go back to Milwaukee up 3-1, that's going to be big. Now, again, if Giannis is effective and they end up even the series, all bets are off. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if none of this stuff will happen. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's about it for the NBA playoffs picture here. And let's see, Lamont. Let me get Lamont's comment up real quick before we go to break. All the injuries and Leonard going down again. Yeah, that's really like the big show in there in the playoffs so far. That's been kind of like the big story too. So it'll be just see if we look, like I said, as how effective will he be. So it's gonna be just see what happens with that now as we get hour number 1 in the books, hour number 2 straight ahead as. We'll be talking some hockey. We'll be doing that hockey. Also, too, it's draft week. Finally, you'll finally get some draft week. We may or may not do old school TV Monday. Like I said, Sid. Hopefully, Sid will be able to join us during this second hour. And a lot to do still. Lakeena McGee, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We do that hockey coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, it's your boy, the Superbag, Sean Sierra, and we are 3 days away from the NFL Draft and the Sports Zone Chicago Draft Party, sponsored by Miller Lite. Come hang out with your favorite Sports Zone Chicago personalities on Thursday, April 27th at Output Lounge, 1758 West Grand Avenue in Chicago at 6 o'clock. Enjoy our live draft show, the best wings in the city, cold drinks, and giveaways throughout the event. So don't meet us there, beat us there. And we'll see you Thursday, April 27th, 6 p.m. at Output Lounge, 1758 West Grand Avenue in Chicago.
And welcome back to hour number 2 of Second C Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakeena McGee. It looks like we're not going to have Sydney Brown join us tonight. Like I said, the power went out in his apartment. So, I don't know what happened there. But, hopefully he'll join us before the show is over with. Now we're going to, we're going to do the hockey first. If you guys happen to join the NHL Stanley Cup playoff, I should say. It's a pretty interesting, kind of like the NBA playoffs, been pretty interesting. We'll start with last night's matchup. Colorado beat Seattle 6-4. They take a 2-1 lead. Nathan McKinnon, who was the who won MVP for the finals last year, of course, the Avalanche are Stanley Cup champions. Unfortunately, they spoiled the debut of the Seattle Kraken, of course, their first go around, doing the NHL playoffs. Him and Mikko Rademan and Kale McCarr had each had a goal and assist as the actually, you know what, let me go back to Sunday's matchup. That's Friday, but this was a big game yesterday too. I'm talking about Edmonton and the Kings. Now the Kings, they were up, I think 2-1. They were up 3-0, and then of course, the Oilers scored 3, and then each scored 1. The Oilers scored 1 to score going to overtime. Of course, it was the game winner by Hyman, who clinched it for them. Zach Hyman, about a little over 10 and a half minutes in the overtime period, they were able to clinch that win. I'm talking about the Oilers. They tied the series at 2-2. We said that this series could go 6 or 7. Excuse me. So, just a pretty interesting. That was a really crazy game. I was turning back because, of course, up until a certain point, the Nuggets T-Wolves game was kind of like boring for a little bit. So I went out and turned to this one. Turned to the Nuggets T-Wolves for a little bit. Then went back to this one. Then of course, suddenly it was tie. Of course, Dressati, Dressati for Leon Dressati for the Oilers came back to tie it, and then Matt Royce, scored one, and then about just under 3 minutes left, well, actually just under 4 minutes left. Actually, Vander Kane scored the tie it. Of course, Zach Hyman scored the game winner there. Of course, that they go 2-2. So again, this has been a very entertaining series if you've been following it. So pretty interesting there. Of course, the Kings had multiple shots to take a 3-1 lead, but they ended up not happening there. Going to this series, another series that's tied. You got the Stars and the Wild. That's been a pretty interesting series as well. Just be kind of a back and forth matchup. Of course, the Wild tried to score a couple of goals. It ended up being for naught. Just a pretty interesting sort of interesting series for them. Of course, Tyler Seguin had 2 goals and both power play goals. It was a very interesting game for the Wild and such. But again, the Stars just have to win that game, 3-2. So now that series is now tied at 2. So that's going to be a pretty interesting rest of the series. Going to be a best of 3 there as well. Let's see. Give me a chance here to post it up here. Boston and Florida. Looks like Florida, Boston, I should say, after giving up that, splitting their first 2 games at home. They're getting back in control of the series, 6-2. In game, they take a commanding 3-1 lead for the Bruins and such. Jacob DeBrusk, I should say, he had 2 goals. Taylor Hall had a couple of goals and an assist. So, been a very interesting series there. Nonetheless, a lot of people thought that maybe could, the Brewers shouldn't have had any trouble, but of course they lose that game 2 in Boston. Of course, they got booed as they were leaving. So, I'm sure they took that to heart. So, now they're back to, taking control of the series. So we'll see if they can, clinch it. I guess we'll preview the games in just a second. Carolina has been my team. Carolina, they dominated game 4. They now they're up 3-1 with a 5-2 rolling win over the Islanders. Excuse me. Nathan Mackenzie McEachin had a goal in his debut. So this actually is very common. Hockey guys, come in and they debut their with their new team and such. So he's been the Myers kind of in and out. So now he's back in the big top. Just a great showing by him. Seth Jarvis had 2 goals, including a power play goal to open things up. It really didn't look bad. I'm talking about the Hurricanes. So they were, now they can clinch a series once again. So we'll see Rob Brindamore and his guys. We'll see they can clinch it again. We'll get to the scheduling in just a minute. As you listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, Lakeena McGee. I guess it's just going to be me flying solo today. No Sidney Brown. Looks like we're not going to have that today. So we'll see what happens there. Going into Saturday's games, of course, now we can talk about the Avs and the Kraken's game. Of course, that place was rocking in Seattle. You can tell that the energy and was electric. They were actually it was actually tied at one point, but the Avs scored 3 goals in the third. Nathan McKinnon had a goal that kind of started it. Of course, Miguel Ratanen had a goal that that kind of started. So they pulled away from the Kraken, and just a very disappointing first. Ratanen had 2 goals and an assist. So McKinnon had 2 goals and an assist as well, as I said earlier. So this is, going to be very interesting to see if the Kraken can kind of get back into it. They're kind of like, they're not in the hole by any stretch. I mean, they're only trailed 2-1. So they can tie it tonight. So we'll see what happens with that one. But the defending champion Avs, they're looking really good at this point. Now, another team that looks good back, going back to the Eastern Conference first round is the Rangers. The Devils, I should say, the Devils. Of course, the Rangers are now up. I actually went to the wrong, clicked on the wrong thing for a second here. There we are. Of course, the Devils. The Devils beat the Rangers, 2-1 to cut into that lead. So, they had it overtime. The Rangers had their shots. They could have, tried to maybe click that 3-1 lead, but the Devils had other ideas and whatnot. Now, Dougie Hamilton, scored the game winner with about like a little over like about 9.5 minutes, give or take, going into overtime period. So that was all. Jack Hughes, if you saw his comments after game 2, he wasn't very happy. So, but then he was able to redeem himself. He had a goal that a power play goal that tied it. Wasn't a lot of scoring after that. Then of course the Dougie Hamilton clincher that cut that lead, to through 2-1. So that'll be interesting to see if they can, kind of tie the series tonight. We'll get to that in a second. Toronto and Tampa. Toronto takes a 2-1 lead. They beat Tampa for. They're talking about the Maple Leafs. I'm cheering very hard for the Maple Leafs here, but yeah. So another overtime throw. Morgan Riley had scored the overtime goal. About 45 seconds left in the overtime, so it was actually this close to going to a double on the second overtime. But Morgan Riley had other ideas. A nice little wrister there with an assist from Ryan O'Reilly, who actually scored the goal that actually helped tie it with a minute left and forced overtime. So Toronto, I should say, trying to nailing that line there. So that was a pretty interesting game. You guys got a chance to watch it. Excuse me, but yeah, it's good. Yeah, so that's a very interesting way here. Also too, Vegas. Another. This is a double over. Speaking of double overtime, this is a double overtime thriller. As Vegas edged out the Jets 5-4. Now this here is kind of like, this is a very interesting game. Nonetheless, Jack Eichel, they had a couple of power play goals. Excuse me, for the Knights, but Al Lowry tied it with just under, again, towing that line with the time, just under 30 seconds left. Michael Amadio had the game winner for the Knights. So now they take a 2-1 lead heading into a very pivotal game for, again, you gotta think that this is going to be very interesting to see how home ice and all that. So far it hasn't really been a big deal. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get things going there as well. So yeah, the Dougie Hamilton goal. He's the first Devils defenseman with a playoff overtime goal. You go all the way back to Brian Pavelski, all the way back in the 2001 Eastern Conference semifinals against the Maple Leafs. So they now have a 4-3 lead all time overtime playoff games against the Rangers. So 3 of those have won coming to MSG. So I guess they like playing at MSG with overtime. I guess you can take your odds there if you're into that. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, these home ice hasn't really been too much of a factor here. Like I said, the Islanders did get that win against the Hurricanes, but again, Hurricanes came right back yesterday and got to that now they got a 3-1 lead. Of course, Boston, they beat Florida. They hoping to clinch, go back home to clinch. Of course, Dallas, against Minnesota, they tied that series. Same thing with the Oilers and the Kings. So again, we're seeing that home ice really doesn't mean that much. So it'll be interesting to see if home ice does become a factor. Like I said, we're seeing it in the NBA. I think hockey's kind of the same way. It's actually happens even more in hockey that home ice doesn't really mean that much. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get it going here. Now going into this week's games, of course, these games are going to be on ESPN and TBS. Of course, again, this will all kind of depend on the NBA, scheduling and such. So we'll see what happens there. Now, speaking of clinching, the Rangers can take that 3-1 lead, or can New Jersey tie it? That's at 2-1. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN. So we'll see if the Devils can tie the series, or can the Rangers take that take a 3-1 lead. Hopefully, Kaner, hasn't really been much of a he was a factor in game 1, but hasn't been really much of a factor since. So bringing in that little bit of experience. Hopefully they'll use him a little bit more. So let's just see what happens with that. Now Toronto and Tampa. We'll see if Tampa can bounce back and tie the series. That'll be at 6:30 on TBS. Vegas and Winnipeg. Winnipeg hoping to cut into tie that series. That's gonna be at 8:30, I should say, on ESPN. And of course, Colorado and the Kraken. Of course, the Seattle fans. They're hoping to kind of be loud and boisterous. Hopefully, they can even that series. That's the late game on TBS at 9 o'clock tonight. The Hurricanes. This is Tuesday's. Tomorrow's matchup's Tuesday. We'll see if the Hurricanes. If you're the Hurricanes, you're hoping that maybe you can kind of clinch it. With the Islanders, 3-1. You're up 3-1. Hopefully, you can clinch it tomorrow. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN tomorrow. A pivotal game 5 here with the Wild and the Stars, 7 o'clock on TBS. That should be a lot of fun as well. That's a pivotal game 5. Same thing here. Another pivotal game 5. We got the Kings and the Oilers at 8:30 on ESPN. So again, pivotal game 5s here. So like I said, it'll be interesting to see who kind of takes control of these series, because I think you need to see a little bit more and more. I know in this case with Edmonton, Connor McDavid has not been too much of a factor, but not too big of kind of like a thing. So hopefully a little bit more for him this series. You don't want to be dependent on him, but you also want him to kind of like be sort of like that part of that contingent that gets you there. So let's see if he can kind of be a little bit. I know they've been kind of to the Kings credit, they've been kind of tamed him a little bit, but again, you gotta hoping that the Kings can kind of like start showing that intensity there. So we'll see what happens there up there in Edmonton tomorrow. Same thing with Minnesota and Dallas. I mean, I feel like this is a series that could definitely go either way at this point. And I think face-offs becoming a thing, and it's going to be very interesting to see like who kind of gets that little edge here. I know Kaprizov has been really solid this series. Jason Robertson has been very solid. So it really is going to depend on the goalies. And I know about Andre Fleury. I know there have been some wonder. People have said that maybe he shouldn't be there and whatnot. But it'll be interesting to see if that could kind of be the case here, because I feel like this is going to be like the goalies are really going to be a factor. And look, we know. Yes, he's about what? I think he's like 39 now, but we know that Marc Andre Fleury can do it. We've seen him do it before, so we'll see if he's back on the net tomorrow. Tonight, I should say. So yeah, we'll be interested tomorrow. I should say. So yeah, so we'll be interested. That should be very interesting too there as well. Now going into Wednesday's matchups, you got again, this is all contingent here, but we'll see if Boston can clinch their series and get the heck out of there, and and all that. Also, too, that's gonna be at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Now, Seattle and Colorado, we'll see where they're at. Will it be Colorado trying to clinch, or will it be a pivotal game 5? Try to start get the edge in the series. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with this series as we play on Wednesday. So that's gonna be interesting. It's a regional thing since TBS won't have any games that day on Wednesday, so it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of get that going there. Thursday, you got again, Tampa again. They don't play again till Thursday, so this is a pivotal again game 5. We'll see. This is gonna be a clinching one, depending on what happens tonight. Will this be a clincher, or will it be like a clincher game for Toronto, or will this be a pivotal game 5 with a series tied 2? Again, we'll see what happens. All attention there again. New York, New Jersey, same thing. The Hudson Bay series, as I call this series. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Also, too, Winnipeg and Vegas, same thing. Will Winnipeg, force a tie, and they'll be able to tie it up, and this will be a pivotal game 5, or will it be Vegas, trying to clinch? So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Now, like I said, I mean, for me, I think it's very impressive. I'm very impressed with the Kraken, even though, they lost a tough one against Colorado, but on Saturday. But you know what? The fact that they've been able to, kind of like force a game 5 at the very least, I think you got to be feeling pretty good. Just your second year in existence, and you're able to go to the playoffs and hang in there with the defending Stanley Cup champion. I think that's got to be, you got to give commend to the Kraken for that. I mean, the Toronto, Tampa. I mean, that series is going to be a whole different thing here. We'll see what happens tonight. Let's see. I meant to say the Hudson Bay series. I mean, well, again, if you gotta see our former Blackhawks, hopefully Kaner can step up, hopefully Panarin can step up and kind of be sort of right there for them, and be kind of one of the things where hopes the Rangers take control of the series and be a little bit more aggressive there. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Winnipeg, same thing. I mean, you gotta trying to sort of like, I know Vegas is very tough, but again, they've been tussling with them, so we'll see what happens with that. Dallas and Minnesota, I'm keeping my eye on that series too. I think it'll be pivotal to see which goalie can kind of stand on his head, if you will. So that'll be interesting to see there. Edmonton and then the Kings again, same thing. I mean, hopefully, I know Connor McDavid hasn't been I don't want to say he hasn't been a factor, but at the same time, you want to be able to make sure you still want him to kind of be a factor. You don't want him to be the guy. Of course, we just talked about earlier the fact that they were able to tie that series and not have him. They can only have one assist, but even still, you want to. I know he's going to be the guy that they're going to be going after. The Kings are, and they've actually been able to tame him. But you want to try to see if he can kind of like be that guy that kind of like gets you up there, so we can going forward. So that should be interesting what happens there these next couple of days. As I can see sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakeena McGee here. Do you find solo today? Let's see here. Let's see. I mean, like I said, I wasn't prepared to do a solo show today, so I'm gonna have let's see. But you know what? Oh, you know what? I know what we can do. We can talk a little bit about draft week. Yes, let's talk about draft week. A little bit, and just just to let you know, of course, we got a big draft party coming up. It's on Thursday, so you guys will say I'll run the commercial one more time. During the break, so make sure you guys know what's coming up on Thursday here on Sports Zone Chicago. But okay, the Carolina Panthers are now on the clock thanks to that trade with the Bears about a month ago. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this is like we've been saying before. This is lion season, and we see some of the various different ways that this has been happening and such. So like I said, it'll be interesting what Carolina does. It looks like they're gonna draft Bryce Young from Alabama. Again, it looks like if you believe all the mock drafts, they're the Panthers brass is keeping it very close to the best, and certainly so. I mean, they're kind of like they're trying to get they got the team back together and such, and they're trying to get Frank right back in excuse me, on the sidelines and such. So you got a whole new front office. So it's gonna be very interesting to see. I'm looking forward, and I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do, because are they playing with us? Or is it going to be maybe CJ Stroud, Will Davis, and all the other guys, any other quarterbacks that are out there on the market right now? Look, they'll have their kids. I know. Let me just see what Scott Federer does. I mean, he made this trade, got up to number one. Now we'll get to see what he's gonna have in store. So he's gonna, he did say that they are going to take a quarterback. Now, the question is which quarterback? That's going to be kind of the number one thing here. Now, going through some of the other Houston's sort of the same thing. I mean, we're interested to see what they do. So you got to wonder, okay, do they go quarterback as well? Do they pick whoever the Panthers don't pick? Okay, they'll, whether it's again, Levis, Stroud. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Same thing with Arizona. I know Arizona's been a subject of a lot of rumors. Now, they have not said whether or not they're gonna trade it. So I know there have been a lot of teams that want to trade up. And if you're Arizona, you're in a pretty prime spot. You got, Mati Osenford, who's the new GM there. So it'll be interesting to see. And actually, it was actually pretty, I want to kind of go back to, we don't really talk about spring football very much. But if you saw what happened at Oklahoma spring practice, of course, Kyler Murray nursing an ACL injury. He actually had a statue anointed in his honor over at in Norman. Of course, did big things at Oklahoma, won multiple Big 12 championships, got into some big bowl games and such. You saw new head coach Jonathan Gannon, Monty Osenford, the GM, the new GM there, and a whole bunch of other folks that were there to anoint him. So that's got to be pretty cool. So it's safe to say that they won't be taking the quarterback. So I think we can kind of honestly say that they won't take a quarterback at number 3. Now, again, will they stay at 3 or will they trade back? I mean, we heard some of the other various rumors. I know Chef D and Ian Rappaport have all said that that there are a lot of teams that are going to want that number 3 pick from Arizona. So be interested to see if Arizona does bite and try to get to that number 3 spot and trade up. Could they trade back and get multiple? They got multiple picks. They got a lot of compensatory picks too. Talking about Arizona, so they may trade back and see. Okay, let's trade back a little bit further, not too far, but further back to see what goes on. And they may go O-line. So who knows? The Colts are the same thing. I mean, if you're the Colts, I mean, do you go quarterback? Do you go, someone with a little bit of, you need maybe more O-line help? And look, I know we've been seeing a lot of mocks and stuff. I know they're going to be, I know ESPN is doing one. I know I'm going to be doing one later today after we're done here. Also, same thing with the NFL Network. I know they're going to be doing a lot of mocks as well, so that's going to be interesting to see. I'll be glad that once all this is over with. I'm not a big fan of we're seeing all these mock drafts and such. So and I know some people. I know I've seen a couple of mock drafts have Indy taking Bryce Young, which I find that very hard to believe when Carolina has been contingent on getting a QB, Stroud, CJ Stroud and stuff. So yeah, there's I'm done with all the mock drafts at this point. It's just I don't want to say it's annoying. But I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, let's just get to. I've said it like the last couple of shows. Let's just get to the draft already. Like I'm kind of like that point where I'm like, I don't like. It's like I'm tired of all the prognostications and all the the innuendo and the leeway and whatever. So it'll be interesting to see if some guys sort of like try to do that. Now I've seen a couple of mocks that got them taking the edge rush. I'm talking about not Arizona. Maybe he says that Anthony Richardson is another name that's being floated around. And I know that his style probably will work with different systems. So it'll be just to see where he goes and who he takes and whatnot. Will Anderson Jr. is going to be another name that's going to be floating around. I know that I've seen some mock drafts. Have him right there at 5. So I know that. Look, Seattle. I think if you're Seattle, you'll take that because you got that pick from Denver. From the Russell Wilson trade. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Excuse me. So yeah, as your Indy, do you take Anthony Richardson at 4? I know that there's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that because I'm thinking that's going to be kind of like the thing here. All right, now the Bears. Again, the Bears are at 9. So I know we talked about it on Friday. So I'm wondering, like, what do you do if you're the Bears? We talked to a good friend, Eric Duerwater. I finally got his name right. Yay. We've seen like some of the various O-line guys. Of course, Broderick Jones. I see a couple of mocks that have Broderick Jones from who's the O-lineman from Oklahoma. His name's being float around there. Like I said, he's done a lot of snaps with them. That's going to be the key here. Like, where do they go? Do they go O-line? Do they do front 7 guy? Do they trade back? I mean, that's another thing that the Bears are that's going to be wondering for the Bears. That will the Bears trade back and perhaps maybe get more picks and get more more sort of like the more like more picks to kind of play with for Ryan Poles. So again, a lot of this stuff can't officially happen until like during the draft. So like that's gonna be really gonna be the thing. Will there be a lot of musical chairs going on? Will it be like guys going back and forth? Will there be a lot of jerseys exchanging? I'm talking about like guys that got picked for one team, but then they find out a few hour or maybe a few minutes later that you're gonna be viewing another team. So yeah, I mean, look, if you're the Bears, look, you've got we'll go to break in a second. I'll talk more about that with the draft, but the whole mock draft for the Bears. I mean, like everything, O-line, and there's so many O-line. We talked about it with our buddy Eric from Windy City Gridiron. Like it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna get a little bit weird. I mean, did we see Jalen Carter? I know Jalen Carter with all his various legal issues and such. My thing is that will he even be there at 9 regardless? I mean, that's gonna be like I know we talked about Darrell Broderick. We talked about Darrell Wright, who, like I said, he's had a lot of it's where he had like over 100 snaps at Tennessee, and that's going to really going to be the thing here. And I feel like this is going to be one of those drafts where like you're going to have, will it be the best player available, or will it just be like somebody who is just like maybe the guys that was just fell into him. Like I said, I don't think Jalen Carter is going to be there. By all the mock drafts have him, actually being drafted earlier than 9. So like I saw, I think I saw one yesterday that has him going to Detroit. A lot of the other mock drafts have him going to Detroit at 6. So he'd be a nice little tandem too with Aiden Hutchinson. That would be a pretty dangerous front 7 there. So for Detroit, so that's really going to be the thing here. So yeah, we're going to see what they do. Like I said, I'll talk more NFL draft coming up. Right after this, I'll do some sports media news. Some ESPN. Some people might be seeing some layoffs at ESPN. So and also too some other more draft stuff and also tune a whole lot more. Lakeena McGee. Yeah, I guess it's just me today. So Second City Sports, Sports on Chicago. More NFL draft talk and sports media news coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Hey folks, it's your boy, the Superbag, Sean Sierra, and we are 3 days away from the NFL Draft and the Sports Zone Chicago Draft Party sponsored by Miller Lite. Come hang out with your favorite Sports Zone Chicago personalities on Thursday, April 27th at Output Lounge, 1758 West Grand Avenue in Chicago at 6 o'clock. Enjoy our live draft show, the best wings in the city, cold drinks, and giveaways throughout the event. So don't meet us there, beat us there. And we'll see you Thursday, April 27th, 6 p.m. at Output Lounge, 1758 West Grand Avenue in Chicago.
And welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakeena McGee, just me today, I guess. Poor our buddy, poor Sid is still, no power still in his house. That poor guy. I'm hoping that it's restored soon. Just for multiple reasons. But we're gonna wrap things up here in this last half hour. Again, if you guys got something to say about NFL draft talk, who you guys think is your sleepers, any other potential steals for your favorite team, whether it's the Bears or any of your other favorite teams, you can comment on our Sports of Chicago's Facebook page and our Sports of Chicago's YouTube page. So of course you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the on Instagram. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Talk a little more NFL draft here. some potential steals. I think, look, there are a lot of steals. I know Hendon Hooker. I know he's recovered from ACL surgery. Of course, he's a QB from Tennessee. There are a lot of folks who are, some people say he could be a top 10 pick, which I find that hard to believe. Do you really want to kind of like, I don't want to say, not saying he would be a waste, but I'm wondering, like, do you want to have your first, especially if you're in the first round, on a guy that could probably won't be able to play this year, maybe not until maybe halfway through next season. I guess if you're, I know the Colts, some people said the Colts have had their eye on him. I know there are a couple other teams that are in the first round that they've had their eye on him. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that. I'm kind of a little bit sort of like a little, hesitant there. And I'm sure he'll get drafted, I'm sure, but I think he probably gets like second or third round. I just don't think that a lot of teams want to take a chance on a guy that's still going to be recovering from ACL surgery and he may not be able to play. Now, look, unless you're a team like, the Colts that probably aren't expecting to, I don't want to say suck, but you kind of, don't want to know what happens there next year. Now, one guy that could be a steal, though, I think it could impact right away is his former teammate. I'm talking about Hooker's former teammate, Jalen Hyatt. Now, there are a whole lot that look, he had he had 5 touchdowns, catches against Alabama. I'm sure Nick Saban's glad that he's gone. He's clear for the draft. So I'm sure he's fine with that. But yeah, could he be perhaps a probable D2 guy, maybe an early second round guy? He could be a steal for somebody. I think, look, there are a lot of teams that could use a running back. So I'm wondering, could he be a wide receiver, I should say. So could be interesting to see. He's definitely one of those guys that could definitely have an impact right away. Now, I'm not saying this guy is a steal, but Bijan Robinson. Now I know there's a lot of mocks have him going top 10. Him going to Philadelphia, he could definitely help Jalen Hurts a little bit. He could definitely be one of those guys that can be kind of like right there, sort of contribute right away. There wouldn't be too much, really be too much, something, not too much, we'll go and it's kind of get the draft off and stuff. So I think he's a big guy. He's only 5'11", but he's really like, his very stout, especially with his legs at 215. So, that power running back that we've seen, kind of old school, power running back. That's probably why there's been a lot of buzz about it. But I'm a little bit, worried about. I know that some, people have said the Bears maybe may take him, but I don't know if they want to do that. I know they need to replace David Montgomery, but I think that's might be a little bit much, for Ryan Poles to take a running back in the top 10. That might be a little bit. Now if he trades back, that's a whole different story. Now, go into some of these other O-line. We talked about Roger Jones, perhaps going to the Bears. Pierce, Gronowski, he's a Northwestern guy, all Big Ten, big burly guy, has a lot of experience too. We talked about him with our buddy, of course, Eric from Gridiron. Parrish Johnson Jr., of course, from Ohio State. Of course, he helped protect C.J. Stroud's blind side for a couple of years. Another guy that can kind of contribute. Darnell Wright, same thing. Also, Tennessee, keep with the Tennessee thing here. Of course, we talked about Hooker and Hyatt just a little bit earlier. Zay Flowers, of course, the guy from Boston College, was one of the few bright spots for Boston College, unfortunately, last year. He was top of the ACC in receiving yards, among them in the top 3. So probably one of those guys that could probably be not necessarily a steal, but, I've seen him, some of the mock drafts, maybe perhaps him going to Green Bay. We'll get to some of that stuff that's happening in Green Bay with the Jets and that whole Aaron Rodgers thing in a second. Now, again, some of the other standouts that could be a steal. Drew Sanders from Arkansas. He's definitely another one of those guys. He was actually, he was all SEC linebacker before he transferred to Arkansas. Of course, remember Alabama fans probably remember him. He and Williams and Drew were a nice little tandem before he left and went to Arkansas. Ended up being, all SEC there as well. Second team all SEC. So he could be a guy that could be a nice little steal for a team. Trenton Simpson from Clemson, all ACC. That guy, he could be a potential day 2 guy. So I think I really like him. I really like his mannerisms. He had 22.5 tackles, 164 total tackles, and 22.5 tackles for loss for the Tigers. He was very productive, and kind of a sort of I don't want to say a struggle year for I don't want to say, you don't want to say a Dabble Sweeney team is a struggle, but you're considering that, they actually ended up finishing strong. He had a nice last few weeks of the season and in their bowl game too. So another guy there, Cam Smith, a secondary guy, a cornerback from South Carolina. Actually one of two guys. Of course, we always talked about the other ones earlier, but he's another guy that could probably be like that. That's slender. He's a little bit slender in frame. He's only 180 pounds at 6'1". I know some people say that might be a little bit too small for a corner, but like I said, he was very effective. He was all SEC. Look, South Carolina has some of their best finishes, since Steve Spurrier was there. That's how long it's been, and he's been one of the reasons why. So I feel like he could definitely contribute to somebody right away. It could be a potential steal for somebody. Jameer Gibbs, Maman, are you still with us? I know he's probably going to be one of his guys from another SEC guy. Another running back from Alabama could be a guy that could probably be a potential day 2 guy. So, this is going to be interesting though. But yeah, and look, he had a 3-year playing career, with the Longhorns before he went to Alabama. And, very not him, but yeah, he's very versatile. He can, shoot, he's very skilled pass catcher, out of the backfield. So he can definitely be a guy that can kind of definitely contribute right away. Of course, kept the things going and such. So we'll just see what happens with that. I wish our buddy Sean Davis was with us because I know he would love this. I know he's says great things about this guy, Isaiah Folksy, the edge rusher from Notre Dame. He has a really big, big reach at 34-inch arms length. I mean, 9 to 7 quarter-inch hands, which I don't think I can. I don't know if I can do that. And he actually ran a 4.5 in the combine. So, I guess you could probably say that he's definitely one of those guys that can kind of, be there right away. He's very burly at 6'5", 264. Could definitely be an edge rusher, a guy that can kind of, be right there for you, kind of like, be a contributor right away and whatnot. Now I'll do a couple more guys here. Josh Downs, of course. We all, for those of you who don't know, of course, from North Carolina, wide receiver. He could be, not a lot of people are paying attention to him. He's very similar in stature to Jordan Addison from USC. I know he's probably going to end up being like a late first round, second rounder, but Downs could probably be another one of those guys that could probably be, and also people have compared it to perhaps maybe a Santana Moss. Remember him from Miami? That guy, second team All-American talking about Downs was, and led, I think he has like some of the other receiver records from North Carolina too. I think he broke a couple of them, so he could be a guy that perhaps maybe could be a contributor to somebody right away. And I'll do, of course, one more here. Let me see who didn't I do? Oh, and Antonio. Oh yeah, I like this guy too. I say different Texas A&M. Antonio Johnson. A lot of people say he could be perhaps maybe a second round guy as well. Now he's someone who is, he's from East St. Louis. I believe they won a state title a few years ago when he was there. He has 7.89 takedowns per contest. That's 71 in 9 games. 3 forced fumbles. Played a ton of snaps for the Aggies and Jimbo Fisher. So he could definitely be one of those guys. Another one of those safeties that could probably be a nice, has a lot of contributions too. So yeah, there are a lot of guys that could probably be a potential steals for somebody. So we talked about some of the guys. I cover like all the bases and such. Of course. Oh, another edge rusher, Will McDonald Jr., who is was all Big 12 from Iowa State. One of the reasons why Iowa State finished as high as they did. They finished third in the Big 12. Yeah, that's a little bit of a stretch, but he's definitely one of those guys that could definitely contribute right away and such. So, another guy that could be a good pain in the back, especially as an edge rusher. He gave guys a lot of fits, just as some of the guys from Oklahoma and OK State. So he's definitely another guy to watch out for as well. And those are just some of the guys that could probably be steals and contributors who could be steals for the draft. A contributor right away. Now, going back to the Bears for a second, I think the Bears could definitely use maybe one of those guys, assuming those guys are still available. I don't, it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do. Now, the Bears could definitely be one of those guys that the Bears could be one of those teams that they still got a lot of holes. I know they signed a lot of guys, but they still got a lot of holes to fill. And we talked about it with some of the guys I mentioned for the O-line. Now, do they try to trade back and perhaps maybe get a secondary guy, or maybe get a front seven or another edge rusher? I mean, we don't know what Ryan Poles' mindset is. Like I said, I think he's really going to play it by ear. Could he maybe trade back? Get a couple of picks. Remember, they don't have a second round pick, so I'm wondering, like, will Ryan Poles move out of that 9th spot and go somewhere else? I mean, for me, I think that's going to be the key, and I think, look, I think if you're the Bears, you're in a pretty good spot. Yeah, you filled a lot of holes, but you still got a lot of holes to fill. So it's definitely like it's all twofold here if you're Ryan Poles. I'm not going to seriously say that this is the best one, but with the ninth pick, they'll look, they don't pick against like the 53rd pick. That's the 22nd pick in the second round. And then they have another. So they got one first round pick, two second round picks, a third rounder, two fourth rounders right now, two fifth rounders, and two seventh rounders. So could I perhaps maybe trade back and maybe trade one of those second round picks and that ninth pick? Perhaps maybe get the guy that they want. Do they try to maybe get a they don't have a sixth rounder? They could try to get a sixth rounder. Do they perhaps maybe move up a little bit in the third round? That's going to really be well, they have the first pick in the third and the fourth round thanks to that Panthers trade. I think also too from the oh crap, Chase Claypool trade with Baltimore. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Ryan Poles does, because I think there's a lot of they got the second round for the Ravens pick and the second rounder from the Panthers pick. Now we just see, do they trade back and perhaps get another sixth rounder, perhaps maybe trade one of those fourth rounders. Remember that fourth rounder they got from the Eagles from a few years ago. So we just see if they do. Like I said, I'm wondering what the Poles is going to do now. Like again, will he have that mindset? Let's take the best guy available, or will it be, look, does Jalen Carter somehow fall to him at 9? I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, do they pick him? Legal issues aside. So we just see what happens with that. Actually, the Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. The Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown with you, and I'm looking at this thing from Mike Garoppolo. Apparently, I guess it's according to Kyler Murray. Of course, the Cardinals need a lot of O-line help as well, like the Bears. Apparently, Kyler Murray is a big fan of Paris Johnson. Now, some of the mocks actually. Let me go up here to the mocks, and I know a couple of mocks that they may get an edge rusher and Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. I've seen a couple of mock drafts where they do go O-line. I know that he and Paris Johnson have actually talked with each other, so I'm wondering, like, do they? I'm sure Murray will have a say, especially since the new Cardinals brass stuck with him, so I'm sure they're going to want to see who do they trade back, because I know they don't want to pick O lineman at 3. So I'm wondering, do they take the trade? Because remember, like I said earlier, there's a lot of people that want. There have been teams that have been vying for that third spot where the Cardinals are. So do they perhaps maybe trade back and get Paris Johnson? That's the guy that apparently that Kyler Murray wants. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with that. Another couple other steals. Devon Witherspoon, of course, you guys remember him from Illinois. He could probably perhaps maybe be a steal from somebody too. So that might be another a name that could probably be floating around as well. So like I said, there's gonna be so many names. Like I said, I'm looking forward to it actually happening. So I mean, like I said, let me just see what happens with that. Actually, as I can see, Sports on Sports on Chicago, Lakeena McGee here with you. You're flying solo today. Let me see. I got some, you know what? I have some sports media news to tell you guys about. I'm actually going to go back to the draft in just a second, because this is actually going to go into old school TV Monday. You'll know what I mean in just a second. But the ratings for the first rounds of both the NBA and the NHL playoffs have actually been pretty solid so far. If you're Turner, Warner Bros. Discovery, and if you're ESPN, you gotta be feeling pretty good. I think I saw one where it had like double-digit highs for hockey and NHL, and also 2 pretty solid ratings for the NBA as well. So I think if you're, if you're ESPN and Warner Bros. Discovery or Turner, you gotta be feeling pretty good about it right now. I mean, you gotta feeling like, you know what? Maybe, I think because people say, "Oh, no one's going to pay attention to the hockey playoffs." Well, I mean, look, you got a lot of the original 6 teams. You got like Connor McDavid, who's one of the biggest stars in the league. You got Colorado, who's the defending champion. You got your Canadian teams, of course. So, I think that, of course, it wouldn't be, too well here, but you got your Canadian teams in the league. So I think that's going to be the real key. And of course, you got Seattle too, which I think Seattle gets very underrated when it comes to how passionate their sports fans are. We all know how passionate they are with the Seahawks and the Mariners. Of course, the old Seahawks. Now you got the Kraken here in the NHL. So I think that place. I think I saw some place where I think that third game was the home opener actually rated a little bit higher than the Mariners weekend series. So, I think if you got to be feeling pretty good. Like I said, we know how Seattle, their fans are. So I think that's going to be a really cool and interesting little stat there as well. Also, too, you got New Jersey and New York facing each other. That's been a really entertaining series so far. Um, yeah, I mean, look, you got it. Like, okay, yeah, you got no Blackhawks. I get it, but I'm still watching them. I'm still enthralled in the playoffs. Yes, of course, I don't have a dog in the race, but I love watching. I'm entertained by it. Like I said, the Toronto Tampa series has been very entertaining. Vegas and Winnipeg's been very entertaining too. Of course, it happened to Morgan Barron. I mean, hit in the face, and even my mom was actually talking about it too. I'm like, how the heck did that guy still play? How the heck does that guy even play? Like, oh, Mom, look, we had a couple of our guys. Duncan Keith, remember that? Like, oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, she remembers him losing all his teeth during the first part of the Stanley Cup runs for the Blackhawks. But yeah, of course, I'm not surprised. Now, same thing with the NBA. I know some people thought that maybe, oh my God, the NBA, no one's gonna watch the NBA. Oh my God, look, you got Boston, you got New York. You guys know how I feel about that. I mean, if look, I'm not gonna say New York's gonna go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but if they do, it's gonna be totally insufferable. Next Twitter is gonna be like, oh God, I think I may have to literally have to I may have to pound someone. Not literally. I don't recommend that all you guys at home, but look, of course you got Golden State and Sacramento. You got that whole area in Central California. I mean, I know the Rays have been monstrous locally in Sacramento. I know they're rocking it. They're feeling it. Boston, of course, Minnesota, Detroit. Of course, you got both the LA teams, the Clippers and the Lakers. You got the defending champion in Milwaukee. The Golden State, I should say. You got the chance from a couple of years back. Milwaukee, of course. Miami, Memphis is actually a solid town. Locally, of course, Phoenix. We don't know about Phoenix and such. So yeah, I could get Minnesota too. I mean, like I kind of see why. I mean, look, you got great stars. I know, yeah, there have been a lot of injuries and such. With Kawhi and Giannis with his back problems and such. But I mean, if you're Warner Bros. Discovery and ESPN, you gotta be feeling pretty good where you are right now, Rays wise, because I think this could have been a Rays disaster for a lot of folks. But I think you gotta be feeling pretty good if you're the city, if you're ESPN them, because I think you gotta be feeling pretty good right now if you're ESPN and Warner Bros. Discovery, because I think the Rays have been pretty solid for early on. I think the Rays are only gonna get better depending on how everyone competes and advances, who doesn't. So that's really gonna be the key here, and I think that's gonna be really be the thing that kind of like sees like if they're gonna get that bigger rating. So we're gonna see what happens with that part of it. Let's see. Anything else I want to talk about before we go to old school TV Monday? Let's see here. I really don't see anything. Well, actually, a basketball note, and I know our girl Christine Manica would like this a lot. I know she was. I know back our girl, her character was Christine Manica. I know she was raving about this guy Victor Wembanyama, I should say, the guy from France. He declared for the draft. He actually declared like right after we went out. We dispersed. So of course, that's the guy that's supposed to be the number one pick. He'll be the first French prospect to go first overall. I know that Bulls fans have been hoping and praying that maybe they may have a shot again. The ping pong balls have to fall their way because, like you said, that anything lower than a top 4 pick, Orlando gets it. That's from the Vooch trade. So hopefully, maybe look, they got an 8.3% chance. So that's gonna be interesting to see. But again, of course, Victor Wembanyama, I should say, is declared for the draft on Friday. Of course, he would probably gonna end up being the first French player taking the number 1. So again, we'll see if the Bulls have an outside shot of getting the top 4. So we'll see what happens there. As I can see, sports on Sports of Chicago, Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown. No Cindy Brown today, of course. Poor guy. No power at his house, unfortunately. But we'll soldier on and hold down the fort here now. We'll go a little bit different with the old school TV Monday. Since this NFL draft, you're coming up this Thursday. And of course, we'll have all the we'll have all the other pomp and circumstance and stuff, and then we'll talk about the Bears picks and stuff. Of course, there's gonna be a big celebration. Everybody's at Sports on Chicago. Of course, Sean's been talking about it too all week. But yeah, I want to talk about the 40th anniversary of the 1983 draft. Yep, that's right. We're talking about the 40th anniversary, just as much as it's interesting because this draft's gonna be this year's draft's gonna be in Kansas City, and the first NFL draft, mind you, and I saw this yesterday, and I find it's a little hilarious because you saw what happened there. It was Jay Berwanger was the first pick from the University of Chicago. He was the first player ever taken in the NFL draft from the Eagles, but he actually ended up trading him to the Bears, believe it or not. So a little bit but look, there were only 93 players ticketed with that draft. There was no cameras. There was no big musical guests. I saw that my guys from Motley Crue are going to be performing at the festivities down there in Kansas City. So, but there was no musical guests. There was no agents. There was no crowds. There was no television cameras because it wasn't televised. I mean, just think about that. This is all the way back in 1936. Okay, folks, and it's interesting because like you said, television wasn't a thing yet. Certainly cable television wasn't a thing yet. You didn't have a lot of media people. I mean, yeah, you had newspapers and stuff like that, but you didn't have a lot of media folks covering the draft at the time. So, there was no social media. There was none of all that other stuff that we know right now on the 21st century and in the 2023. So it's hilarious that I find it funny. It was interesting that happened yesterday, but yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I saw a little tidbit. I just want to share a little bit of that with you. And of course, look, if you guys want to do it for a little trivia purposes, I'm saying, I mean, just I have no problem with that. Now, going into the 1983 draft, we're celebrating 40 years of that draft and that draft class. And if you saw, that draft class was something, right? Like a lot of those guys ended up going to the Hall of Fame. A lot of them ended up being big contributors right away. Of course, the then Baltimore Colts took John Elway, and then of course he got traded. He didn't want to play for the Colts, because they were about to move to Indianapolis, not too long after that, blah, blah, blah. Of course, he went to Denver. The rest was history. Eric Dickerson, of course, from SMU. Well, Elway was from Stanford, of course. SMU for Mr. Eric Dickerson. Kurt Warner, not that Kurt Warner, not the Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm talking about the running back from Penn State. That Kurt Warner with a C. He ended up going to the Seahawks. That was a trade that they got from a year prior from the Rams, not the current trade. It was like the Rams and the Seahawks swap picks, but it was from a different trade from the year before. Of course, Chris Hinton, of course, that trade came from Baltimore. Of course, for Northwestern, I know a guard. I know a lot of the rest of folks remember that name. Billy Ray Smith, of course, Billy Ray Smith, of course, the linebacker from Arkansas. He was an All-SEC. Of course, they got that pick from San Francisco, going to San Diego. And of course, from the Bears, Mr. Hall of Famer Jimbo Covert from Pittsburgh, who protected Dan Marino's blind side. Todd Blackledge, of course, who's now at NBC, going to be doing the Big Ten coverage there with Noah Eagle and Catherine Tappan. Let's see, other guys of note here. Of course, Jim Kelly, of course, went 14 to Buffalo. And Dan Marino, who, as we mentioned, Dan Marino going 27 to the Dolphins. A lot of people thought that was a little bit nuts that the Dolphins would do that Don Shula would actually pick him, but let the rest was history. You saw what happened. So it's interesting that you look at some of the guys now, of course, some of the guys end up being Hall of Famers like Marino, like Jim Kelly, Jimbo Covert, of course, for the Bears, Eric Dickerson, E.D., of course, John Elway. But some of the guys that we didn't get a chance to see, I mean, Kurt Warner actually, I'm talking about Penn State's Kurt Warner. I'm talking about that, the running back. I'm talking about that guy. He, of course, his son has autism. There wasn't a lot of medical not treatment, but like medical stuff available for folks who had autism at the time. This is back in the early 80s. So he actually decided to retire. I'm talking about Kurt Warner, to help take care of his son with his wife. a lot of players would not have done that. And plus, they weren't getting as much money at the time, so they were getting access to health care, for the families and stuff like that. So you got to commend him for his decision to put in family first. Todd Blackledge, we talked about that too. He's a very sought after quarterback from Penn State. Ended up, of course, we all know, of course, doing television, worked at CBS, ABC for years. Now, of course, we're talking about he's going to be doing NBC for the coverage of the Big Ten games. Of course, I talk about it with Noah Eagle and Catherine Taplin. Of course, Jim Kelly, of course, we talk about that. Tony Eason, who was a bit of a bust from Illinois, went to New England, ended up going to the Super Bowl, but that, really didn't know too much from him after that. Of course, the Bears also took Willie Gault. Of course, the Bears had 2 first-round picks that year. Helped give tribute to the Super Bowl, but of course, he ended up, going into acting and such. I think he's still doing some acting too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and Ken O'Brien is another name that another quarterback. I mean, there were about like 10 quarterbacks taken with that draft. I mean, like 7 quarterbacks out of then 29. Of course, there were only 2018s at the time. Of course, Darrell Green. Of course, can't forget about Darrell Green. Was actually picked, was picked last in the first round by Washington at 28. Of course, from Texas A&M Kingsville. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. Of course, yeah, he ended up going to the Hall of Fame. So ended up being probably still one of the most, sought after, probably could still run a 4.5. I'm sure. So 4.40. I'm sure if you challenge him to run a 4.5, a 4.5 40 time, I'm sure he could probably do that even at 60 something. You see that guy today, but my God, I mean, he looks like he still play. He can still play too if he wanted to. I don't know if he would want to, but yeah, I think that's pretty funny there. But yeah, I mean, just some of the great players that came from that draft class. I mean, I think that's why I think people say that particular draft class gets sought after to this day, because I think because all the stuff that kind of happened after that, but just a great class of guys. And another, oh look, here's another draft that's going by. This is actually 25 years ago. Let's go a little bit further into the machine, a little further to the 21st century, the 1998 NFL draft. Yeah, get ready to feel old, folks. But yeah, I mean, the whole Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf thing, Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf. I mean, it was just like, that was kind of one of those instances where if you thought about what was this big, massive, like, who's going to take, I'll be honest, hopefully Peyton doesn't go get back to Mr. Manning, but I actually picked Leaf was going to be a better quarterback than Peyton. I don't know why I felt that way. And of course, you ask Ryan Leaf now. I mean, I'm sure we know all his personal issues that he's had. He's taken all his stride and such. I mean, that's a really been a very. I know he's had his issues and such, but he's been very, cordial and very respectful, and he saw all the stuff that happened after that, and I just think he just got it was just bad luck on his part. Now, of course, Peyton Manning, of course, ended up going to Indy. The rest was history there. Another guy that ended up being a big countries in there. Of course, Charles Woodson ended up going to Oakland, then Oakland Raiders. Of course, Heisman Trophy winner from Michigan, ended up winning the national championship with Michigan after not about a month later. At the in '98 against Ryan Leaf's Washington State Wazoo Cougars. But yeah, that of course he ended up going to the Hall of Fame too. Curtis Enos, I know that's who the Bears picked at 5. Uh, yeah, that wasn't Fred Taylor, who I'm sure is going to go to the Hall of Fame at some point. You got to think. Kyle Turley, that's another pretty solid Eagles fault. So yeah, that was actually so some interesting a very interesting group of guys that were picked in that draft too. That's about it. I'm trying to remember another guy. Oh, Kevin Dice. I know he was he actually ended up being a big contributor to the Titans going all the way to the Super Bowl a few years later. Randy Moss, of course, if you guys remember, here's a story here about Randy Moss actually was supposed to be going to the Bears. And they actually, the Bears actually want the Bears brass at the time, Ted Phillips and those guys, they actually wanted to take Randy Moss. But unfortunately, what ended up happening was that he actually missed a breakfast that he was supposed to be going with Walter Payton. This was actually before Payton got real sick. And of course, we saw what happened after that. And of course, he didn't show up and such. So, unfortunately, but, ended up going to Minnesota. New England, a couple other teams that had a great career, and the rest is history there. Al Faneca, of course, 28th pick from LSU, ended up going to the Steelers. Probably one of the best, offensive guards who ever played the game. I'm glad he finally got into the Hall of Fame, and very deservedly. Let's see. Corey Chavis, who actually is doing work for CBS Sports now, CBS Sports Network now. He actually is a really good analyst. Didn't end up being a great NFL player, but he's actually a great analyst for CBS. So, CBS Sports Network, I should say. So yeah, now there, Flozo Adams, you guys remember from Michigan State, right? He ended up going to Dallas. Was a good contributions there. Patrick Surtain, Sam Coward. I mean, some of these guys from this list ended up, doing pretty well. Samari Roll, remember that name, folks, from Florida State, two-time All ACC. I think it was second team All American, if I'm not mistaken, too. Samari Roll was. So, that was a contributor there. Steven Alexander from Oklahoma. So there have been a lot of guys. Jeremy Newberry, who ended up going to San Fran. Oleg Krutz, remember that guy, Bears fans, the third rounder. Leonard Little, boy, it's too bad what happened. Too bad what happened to him. Just couldn't get it together. Yeah, Amon Green, of course. Seattle, and Green Bay too. Of course, Brian Greasy is another guy. He went a third rounder. Going to Denver. Charles was team in Michigan. Oh, Hines Ward. Yeah, remember that guy? Ended up going, probably going to go into the Hall of Fame, perhaps. So a lot of guys from that draft as well. So a lot of great players. Guys, look, some guys end up not being, Ike Reese is another name that's being floated around too. So yeah. So a lot of great Matt Burke, of course, he ended up going to Baltimore, and of course ended up winning 2 Super Bowls there with Minnesota. Was drafted by Minnesota in the 6th, but ended up, of course, got traded to Baltimore. Won 2 Super Bowls there. Well, won 2 Super Bowls. So yeah, pretty good job. Fred Beasley, another name. Jamal Alexander, Matt Hasselbeck, of course, he does great work with ESPN. So a pretty solid list from that draft. Yeah, it's been 25 years since a lot of those guys. I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, look, this is what the NFL draft is. I mean, the draft is sort of one of those things where you kind of just have to, a lot of those, guys, some contribute, some end up being better at, coaching and doing analyst work, of course, and not, playing at all. And actually, some guys they win Super Bowls too. So, look, you might find a gem in the NFL draft. Hopefully, the Bears will draft a couple of gems coming up this week. So we'll just see what happens with that. So, you look it up. You'll enjoy the draft on Thursday. You follow Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG. Of course, you can follow City Brown and Sid Kid 80 on both the Instagram and the Twitter. So you can follow Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago anytime you want on our at Social Sports on Chicago on our Facebook and our YouTube pages. You can watch the replay of our shows right there for you. Also, too, of course, you can catch the audio version on War Media Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts and such. Spotify. I know we're on Spotify and iHeart as well. I know our buddy Kyle's been on it, so we'll probably have some stuff for you coming up in NFL draft as well, and also NBA playoffs too as well. Of course, our buddy Josh Hicks does a lot of contributions from there as well, and of course, you can catch Sports on Chicago. Let me see if I can get this up for you guys real quick on Roku TV. Of course, celebrate with the squad. Get with the program. Wherever you get your on your Roku app, whether it's on your phone, your Chromebook, your PC or whatever you got, it's all right there for you. Just type in Sports of Chicago on your app store on Roku. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. What's up, cuz? They're back tonight, so I'm sure they're gonna have a lot to say about the NFL draft with the Bears, of course, NBA playoffs as well. So anytime, anywhere you want, Sports of Chicago is right there for you on the Roku app. Wherever you get your apps and such. So it's all right there for you. Now, hopefully, so we'll be back with us on Friday. Let's hope. But even still, you guys, enjoy the NBA and the NHL playoffs. Got the NFL draft coming up as well. So enjoy all that for nobody. So this is I'm going to say, I'm Lakeena McGee. This is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you Friday. And as Sid would say, NFL draft coming up. Holla.